What's up, Kingdom of Rock? This is Matt Gibson here with my awesome co-host Michael Melenda and our special guest Preetham Vishwanatha from Kina AI. How's it going, guys?
Hey, how's it going? Great to meet you, Matt and Michael.
Thanks for taking part of this. I think that as much as AI has been a part of everyone's life, I think as far as the creative sector, music, well, in anything really. I mean, I think there's a lot of misconceptions about it, what it does, what it can do. So I'm really looking forward to this discussion.
Yeah, no, that's amazing, amazing. Hosting. I've seen much of your live streams. The Kingdom of Rock rocks.
Yes,
Happy to jive with you guys.
we're happy about that. Well, maybe we can get. Matt obviously has a lot more experience with this than I do, but let me just talk to you about the creative music side of things. I think there's probably some trepidation and a little bit of cynicism about how AI can help creators create. So if I'm a bone idiot about it, and I am a bone idiot about it, what opportunities kind of exist for me in this side of things, in this side of tech, I should say.
Many different things. AI for creators can mean creation, post production, during production, pre production, even before you being an artist, like you're an aspirant. How do you get from point A to point B? So we can take one of the use cases. If you're already an artist and you're actually looking at an opportunity as a composer to create something unique. You might be an artist who might be working with a music director, and the music director might have given you certain objectives for, let's say, an ad jingle or an upcoming Netflix series for which you're composing music to. So the Netflix series might have a setting which might be like you're a protagonist. I don't know, your lover died. It's a medieval setting. And probably it's a background music, and you are supposed to create for this medieval time. How do you go about doing that? Like, you need to do research in terms of what is that medieval time. You need to do research in terms of the script and who's the protagonist. What does it mean in terms of a lover dying? Is it sad? Is it angry? Is it rebellious music, and so on and so forth? And once you get that idea, now you noodle around saying what might be great within the consistency of the backdrop of this Netflix series, as well as for this specific occasion where I'm creating background music. You got to do all of this. Now, it might take, for a good composer, it might take somewhere between 6 to 8 weeks. For somebody who's still getting into the process, it might take a bit longer. Where does AI come into play over here? Imagine if you can actually provide both your compositional music, which is the music compositions that you're done for this Netflix series, and all the compositions that you are good at, which you are done for every other series. You have a database of that. You allow the artificial intelligence to learn about your style, and you tell AI using some English-like language the script that the director gave you, which is sad music, medieval times, given the backdrop. You say, give me some ideas. What does the composition look like for this medieval era, right? So if AI can actually generate using few tokens of your own compositional style, and this convergent aspect of what music you are actually anticipating for you to create, and it gives you ideas, you can cut short at least 3 weeks of research in terms of dabbling around creating the kind of music that you want to create.
Well, let me ask this then, because if I was that beginning composer, I would have to research, as you said, what is medieval music? What are medieval melodies? What are the modes that go with medieval melodies? And what instruments should I use to voice these melodies? So the AI would be able to find all of that for me?
Most of it, because the idea is not for the AI to generate all of it, eliminating you in the process. That is the creator. It can never do that. It will never do that. And I can say that I've been working on AI and musical acoustics for a long period of time. But what it can do is become your compadre, your assistants, your your Jarvis, if you will, right? If you're the Iron Man of the creator, AI is your Jarvis to create something better, faster, in less period of time. I'd say, what do you think about this? It puts the human in the loop, like human in control, and it builds the Iron Man suits around it, saying, how about this? How about this? And you can say, no, I don't like the chord progression, or you can say, I don't like the instruments, eliminate the instrument. So that's what AI can do.
So I'm starting and I have this little melody, la da 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 da, and then I go into AI. So that's how I create, la da 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 da. That's my thing. And then the AI is going to go. It's going to be my AI is going to be snotty. So it's going to tell me, hey, dude, first of all, you have to have this la da 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 on a lyre. A lyre can only play this many notes, so you're going to have to amend your melody this way. So it automatically would do that for me, maybe without the snotty voice, but
it does. So you're imagining an AI like a Siri. If you take the Siri out of the equation, right? It's really not a Jarvis which is talking to you. Let's cut back 10 years, like right now. What's possible now to next 1 year, right? Probably 10 years from now, you can add Siri and so on. But so right now, it's going to give you like 3 different instruments, medieval instruments, lyre being one of it. And that specific tone that you actually recorded, it'll say, this is how it sounds on a sitar. This is how it sounds on a tamburi. This is how it sounds on a lyre, and so on.
Well, would someone have to? Someone has to obviously tell the AI engine, here's a whole bunch of medieval stuff, right? I mean, it just doesn't come out. It's not magic. Somebody has to program the options in, right?
Yeah. So that someone is some company similar to Kena. That's what we do. We or any person. I mean, let's. I don't want to plug Kena, but any person who actually has the ability to classify all instruments over a period of time, and who can also synthesize how the sound, the timbre or the timbre, as we call it, the envelope, the resonance of each of this instrument, and know what notes, what octaves are allowed on each of this instrument, then the creative process, not the creative, but at least the translation and the transcription process comes down to taking your voice, identifying the octaves and the pitch frequencies, figuring out what's the melodic baseline and the harmonic baseline for that is, and overfitting that to any of these instruments. Pretty much that's what AI does.
Okay. Well, let me just ask one more thing, Matt, then I'll shut up and answer this question. But I mean, I'm assuming that there's a lot of programming that goes into something like this, and I'm not sure. I mean, are companies such as yours who do this? Is it like a pharmaceutical company? Hey, only 6 people die of Gaga, so we're not going to do a drug for that. I mean, so the correlation would be, 6 people write medieval, Netflix underscores every 10 years. So we're not going to bother to do all this work for medieval instruments and medieval modes and all that.
So the beauty of creativity is not necessarily trying to constrain yourself to a medieval setting, but the beauty is to say, what can I do with all the settings that I have as an optionality, right? I mean, who is to say that a lyre mixed with a metal guitar is not supposed to be a good subgenre to listen to, right? I mean, that's how industrial music is born, where you're actually throwing a lot of industrial sounds. You can actually go ahead and add a harmonica with door style, come up with your own, compositions. So the idea is, here's optionality. Here's assistive capability for you to say, pick a bird song. I mean, I don't care. Like you record all the octaves that Blue Jay can make, and you say la-di-da-di-da, and say, okay, I want it in the style of Blue Jay. AI can do that. Now, whether you want to use it in your creative processes or not is left to every single creator. But the option of many different instruments, many different sounds and synthesis, and ability to translate from one instrument to another is what we enable as a process.
Are you, hey, by the way, are you guys, Mike, are you seeing Preetham freezing up a little bit?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, your audio is good, but the video is freezing a little bit.
It's just, thank goodness you're so handsome, Preetham, because it's freezing onto your handsome face, so that's good.
I bring in a lot of pixel when I speak.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so let me ask you this. This is something we kind of got started deep diving, but if you're just like, what if I'm this guy? What's AI? What is artificial intelligence? I hear about this all the time, and I heard your application of it, but like, what is AI? Like for just the musician that's trying to figure out how can I use this?
Fair enough. I think without trying to understand what is AI made up of, there are two ways to understand AI, right? What is it made up of, or what is the application of it? I think we spoke about what is the application of it,
Right.
which is it is something which is reasonably intelligent, which can help you automate most of the mundane, boring processes or administrative processes, which are extremely easy for a human being, but hard to code if you actually sit down and try to break down the rules of it. Like, for example, if I have to say, convert la-di-da-di-da to sitar, well, if I know how to play sitar and if I can say la-di-da-di-da, or if I know how to play guitar and if I say la-di-da-di-da, for me as an artist, I can pick, if I'm trained in guitar, I can kind of noodle around and figure la-di-da-di-da. But if you ask a programmer to write the rules around it, it's impossible. It's a computationally hard task. So AI is not something that you can program. AI is an algorithm which learns how to translate based on many million rounds of training, which happens in a very small period of time, so that you create a black box which can achieve that transcription for us. That's specific to music. But a higher level layman term is anything that has reasonable intelligence, similar to what humans can do, but not a creative process, just an administrative process, using common sense reasoning, can be considered as AI as of today, because good old-fashioned AI cannot even do so much, right? So what AI can do suddenly becomes good old-fashioned AI in terms of, playing chess. Deep Blue can play chess and it's beaten humans. But can you play Go? Like, AlphaGo can beat humans. But now can you create music? So AI is what is possible today with some amount of common sense reasoning that was considered to be impossible like 5 years back.
Well, okay, so for example, we were talking, Preetham and I were chatting back and forth the other day, and I was commenting how my iPhone 12's autocorrect thinks that it's smarter than me when I spell words all the time. And it's always wrong. It's always wrong. And so that's artificial intelligence that is feeding those suggestions in there based on my use, right?
We can call it artificial intelligence. Again, it's a good old-fashioned AI. So anything which is spell checks are not in the parlance of AI anymore. It used to be. You don't call it AI anymore. That's the thing, right? AI catches on and catches up with things which is already solved for. It's like, okay, it becomes like classical machine learning, right?
Machine learning, yeah.
Spell checks, you wouldn't call it as AI. At least now, 10 years back, you would call spell checks as AI, but now it's just a tool.
Gotcha.
Whatever we call it, I would love it if somebody would come up with a software where I'm trying to transcribe interviews and audio that would actually give me a written transcription back in Word or whatever that wasn't completely messed up and sounded like aliens talking to cattle. That would be great.
I think Google. There are many different companies who try to do that for call centers. Like primarily they require, especially when it's in call centers which has to do with finance, or if people are calling for 911 or medical assistance. There's a lot of software today. Google Translate is reasonably good enough in terms of ASR, automated speech recognition, because there's accent, there's intonation, there's noise, and so on and so forth. So the accuracy is fairly good today, where you can actually take this conversation And as long as it's monophonic, if all the three speak at the same point of time, the accuracy of that probably can be about 80%. But if only one of us start talking at any given point in time, the accuracy is reasonably high.
Well, maybe offline you could tell me what I can get, because this is a personal problem. But as a journalist who's constantly interviewing people on the phone or on Zoom, every time I try to do an audio to text converter, it is awful. Like I said, it's like cattle talking to each other, and I'm not invited into the conversation.
Yeah.
And I'll do exactly what somebody said. Well, I use this Marshall amp on this thing, and it'll come back when the gophers went into my toy box. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's really bad. It's really, I'm suffering here.
But you know what? When you're talking about creativity, though, putting out random stuff sometimes is good. So like, even though like AI is not perfect yet, like we're not there yet. We don't have like Jarvis, like a robot walking around our house asking us what we'd like for dinner. You know, like we're not at that level yet, right? So like, but what we do have is the abilities to suggest and to augment, like you're saying, and give you choices, even if they're not always the choices that you would desire, you know? So like, it's a way to prompt creativity in a sense. Is that kind of what Kina does?
Yeah, no, Kina does two separate things. One is compositional assistance, which is the research area we're working on. The second one is the community app that we're building, which is in the area of helping aspiring musicians and musicians monetize. That's called Kina Opus. That's an app. That's a consumer-facing app. That's very practitioner-oriented and musician-oriented. It has a community layer. It has a layer in terms of interactive sheet music, where you can play a piano against the sheet music, upload it, and get feedback. It gives you human-like feedback, which says, how's your polyrhythms, how's your 16th notes, how's your 8th notes, left hand versus right hand, your treble clefs, and so on and so forth, right? It gives you all kind of assessments, which is good for learning. And it also has, we're launching something called Kina Circles, where you can actually launch, if you have a band, you can launch your own circle, bring your fans in, and get your first drops, get feedback in terms of your tonality, your musicality before you cut an album. All kind of features like about 65,000 different scales, chord progressions, arpeggios for learning. I can go on and on. So that's like a consumer-facing app.
If I'm all of a sudden saying I'm done with rock and roll, I want to get into EDM hard, but I don't know anything about it. Like I could feed in a track to Kina, and it would say, hey, your kick drums are a little bit off, or people who listen to EBM typically like these features and you don't have them, so you should look for them. Is it something like that?
That's on the composition side. That's not on. So we haven't merged the learning and the composition yet. The learning app is supremely focused towards giving you feedback based on Western music right now. It's when I use the word Western, that includes a lot of genres. That includes rock and roll. That includes classical. That includes blues. I know that's not called Western classical, but what we are not doing currently is Byzantine, Egyptian, Indian ragas, and so on. We'll get there, but almost like hundreds of genres, we give feedback monophonic, right? We cannot do polyphonic. That is, if you have multiple instruments, if you have symphonies, you have, like as you said, you have beats and kicks and synth going on. We cannot do that right now, and we intentionally so. But if you're learning guitar and you play a nice lick, we can actually give you feedback on that lick, saying whether you're on rhythm, did you play metronomically, or did you play over the beat?
Wow. Okay.
How's your intonation, and so on.
But I mean, later on down the line, I'm assuming, because what I hope I'm getting this right, but the typical assumption of AI is I go to certain websites and blah blah blah, and these ads are always served back to me. Here's your interest, or Spotify, you might be interested in this artist. So at some point, is Kina going to do something where, we focused on what people like about urban music or EDM or country western even, and here are the parameters that we're going to suggest, really getting seduce people into liking what you do?
The idea is to do that in stage 3 because we want to disintermediate. How do we bring power back to the creator? I mean, that's the main theme, right? Why would we want to do that as a passion or a motivation? We want to bring power back to the creator, which is A&R. Can we automate responsibilities of A&R, or can we provide superpowers to A&Rs who can actually truly say beyond their human skills, they can truly actually get a feel on the market, not by Spotify data, but really getting a pulse in terms of male falsetto is back. How do you know that? I mean, how do you really know that male falsetto is back? How do you really know that certain amp settings on guitar is appreciated by certain genre? So for that, you need to go beyond just Spotify listening data. You need to also see what's happening indie, what's happening underground, which is not on Spotify. You should listen to different people practicing different things. Why are they practicing certain tonality? So we are capturing the bottom of the pyramid there, because Spotify is top of the pyramid. It's 1 to 5% of people, of good artists, are on Spotify, right? And only 1% of that gets popularity. What about 99%? What's happening with them? That's called the long tail. So identifying the long tail is supremely hard. And people who are not in that business, like Spotify, don't care much about it, because they are not really in. They give you feedback in terms of your views. They give you feedback in terms of how many people listen to your music. But beyond that, so that's what we will do in phase 3. But given our commitments, our focus, our priority, phase 1, phase 2, we will not do that. There's only so much we can do. So we are purely focused on tools.
I think that's awesome, because I mean, Matt and I have had discussions. A lot of people have had discussions about the old school A&R. It doesn't really exist anymore for the most part. Record companies are not preparing artists to how do you move, how do you sing, how do you play your instrument. So the fact that your team is kind of diving into this in any manner, shape, or form, I'm sure it's going to be valuable to people, because they do ask all the time, how do I become a better performer? How do I become a better composer? And there's really no one to tell them. It's just like peer stuff. I mean, they can call me, and it's just my opinion. It's not based on the data that you're talking about collecting.
I'm sorry about that. I don't know. Usually that doesn't happen at this time, unless there's an emergency.
Maybe the government's surveilling us because we're talking about artificial intelligence or something.
Somebody's saying take this guy down right now before he changes it. All right. I think A&R. You guys know, I don't want to preach to the choir. Music is a meta community, right? It's a meta community of publishers, composers, venue artists, ticket masters, artist managers, hobbyists, clinicians, educators, autodidacts. Literally, that's a meta community. Okay, at least my vision, and the reason I quit my job, full-time, well-paying job with really good stocks, is primarily because I believe that there's 100 years worth of job for about 10,000 people to cater to this meta community and disintermediate it and bring the power back, bring the power back to the creator and the consumer. It's not just the creator economy. I think, the creator exists because of the consumers, right? So yes, of course, you need to bring the power back to the creator, but you need to give the power to the consumer as well to say what is it that they like, so that if they can provide the feedback directly to the creator, so that the creator can monetize better. Because the creator can be, supremely creative and miss out on the local maxima. That is, they might be posthumously famous later on because their art was understood by 10 generations from now. But that's not helpful for the creator, right? That's just like pure math. Applied math is an area where you say, do you want to make money? Then you need to listen to the consumers. How do I actually also give the power to the consumer to spend their dollars in the value chain to the most optimal places, right? So that's pretty much what we wanted to do. That's like a lot of work. I mean, that's like, I can imagine hundreds of startups in that area trying to disintermediate each one of this, and we want to get our lion's share as much as possible.
Well, let me ask you this. So when you started Kina, right, and you're like, I have nothing, right? I just have an idea. Like, where did you go to? Did you start with like training data from like music research? Was there a lot of available training data out there to start your AI with, or did you have to just make it up yourself?
Quick plug in terms of how I started Kina. So
Yeah,
when I was a kid, when I was a kid, I used to learn violin, Indian Carnatic style. Did that for about 5 years. My teacher was the most orthodox, the most strictest. Primarily for him, I mean, he was an old dude. He was probably 78, 80 years old when I was learning from him. For him, music is divine, especially Carnatic Indian music. They take it really, really, really seriously and very orthodox. So a bad note is blasphemy, right? A bad note is not an error; it's blasphemy. So, I mean, you get interventions from the family saying, "Why are you not practicing? What's up? Why are you like, disrespecting God Saraswati?" Right? It's Saraswati is the god which actually, and it's almost like if you don't do well in music, you'll fail in life or something. So
Wow.
so that was the kind of training that I went through for 5 years, and that discouraged me a lot, more than encouraging me.
No kidding. You don't want to get God pissed off at you.
Yeah,
sure.
I'm like, as much as I want music to be fun, it's not. I mean, this is not what I signed up for. I mean, it's almost like forced by your parents to say no, do it, otherwise you'll never succeed in life. I'm like, okay, whatever. 30 years, cut chase to 30 years. I didn't touch an instrument for 30 years, for probably more than 30 years. But school, college, primarily grew up listening to, college days, school days, Sepultura, Anthrax, your rebellious ways, right? So that's how I grew up. And then I started doing Django Reinhardt, a lot of jazz, a lot of old school classics, but always was interested in being front and center on metal guitar. So I always wanted to be a guitarist, but that's like that's a wannabe status, right? You don't do anything about it. I want to do this. I want to do this. About 4 years back, a friend was actually selling a Fender Stratocaster. Casey, he said, "Do you want this for $70?" I'm like, dude, Stratocaster for $70? Yeah. I'll buy it.
Mhm.
The guitar was a closet guitar for about a month. I mean, I bought it, you put it in the closet, you don't do anything about it, right? It's still a wannabe status. You picked up a cool toy, but not doing anything. Single dad, don't have time to go to all this, rock schools, guitar centers. Only time I used to have is early in the morning before going to the gym, or late in the night after kids go to bed. So tried to sign up on online classes. Electric guitar with amps has a lot of feedback, so that didn't work, right? And even in this conversation, I freeze so many times. Imagine if I'm playing something and the other person has no clue how to fix it. So that didn't work. Went to all these online apps like Musician and blah. So it had all this bouncing balls with Mary Had a Little Lamb, Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. I'm like, what? I want to learn Tornado of Souls. I want to learn Enter Sandman. When am I going to get to that? And they said, we don't have it. I said, okay, like any self-respecting metalhead would do, went to YouTube, literally learned everything. Which means two things. You think you're learning something really fast, but you're picking up a lot of bad habits with nobody around helping you fix it. No friends who jam on guitar, nobody giving you feedback. So you get to quickly sounding something like Enter Sandman, but then you get stuck there for so long that you have to relearn everything. That's when I realized, that's when I'm like, this is a hard problem. I mean, it's not easy to learn music, right? It's a practitioner's art. It is not it's like boxing. You have to be in the ring every day. You have to train every day to sound like that. It's not like I have the knowledge of music and I'll sound good, right? So that's when I realized that 4 things are missing in YouTube. Discovery is broken. When I say I want to learn Enter Sandman, there are 1,000 people trying to teach you Enter Sandman. The most popular video is not the right video to learn from, because it makes an assumption that you have some grounding, you have some fundamentals. But it doesn't tell you what the prerequisites are. You have to discover that prerequisites yourself, and you spend a lot of time, right? That's why a human teacher is always helpful.
Mhm.
Second thing that's broken with YouTube is there's no tools. Like there's no journal, there's no scales, there's no chords, there's no tabs, nothing. Third thing that's broken is there's no community to help you, like to jam, to give you feedback, to say. And the fourth thing is there's no feedback in itself. Like you cannot play to YouTube and get a feedback. So I said these 4 has to be solved, because this is a challenge. People drop off because of this. That's how I started, Matt, from your question. But I realized very quickly that I am approaching this from an AI engineer's mindset, right? Because I thought, what is music? Music is a bunch of notes. Notes are frequencies, primordial pitches. If I figure it out, I can identify the harmonies, I can identify the melodies, 12-part temperament, math, stat, how hard can it be? So it's called epistemic arrogance, right? You start with, when you start with an engineer's mindset and with some little knowledge, which is very dangerous. If you're not a professional musician, you dabbled around, you compose guitar music, you're like, how hard can it be? That's how I started. And then I was punched in my face very quickly, primarily because of the same questions that you asked. Like, notes and, scales are easy. I did it in 15 days. I literally created an algorithm which created all the scales possible, Byzantine scales, mixolydian, all kind of, your jazz scales and so on, right? 15 days done. Pretty much all your chords, your triads, your sevenths, your ninths, done within 15 days. Now I said, I'm going to start the feedback module. Like if I don't have training data, I have the math of how to identify the beats. Like if you play music, I wrote a module which can identify what is the probable beat. Like, is it 180? Is it 120? Is it 60? And if I get the metronome of the beat, then I'll actually figure out whether they are playing in rhythm or not, like the time signature and so on and so forth. Very soon, when you start trying to give feedback for jazz music or blues music or any other things which actually goes over, which is not metronomical in nature, especially piano, rubato style, you realize that it's a NP hard problem. In math, it's called a non-deterministic polynomial. What it means is, this is not something that machines can easily do. What humans can easily do, what a human teacher can just listen to, pick up through ear training over years of training, and give feedback saying, you're probably at a B7 or whatever, cannot be done very easily with music, primarily because it lacks context. It lacks musicality. What can be easily perceived as something, as a feedback that you can give on compositional architecture of music and tonality of music, just stops very quickly after giving feedback on beats, rhythm, intonation, and time signature. First month, I finished building an AI which does these 4 things, and we launched with that. And very, very quickly, we realized that we are in uncharted territory where people are asking feedback on musicality, feedback on the rubato style playing, feedback on dynamics and expression. We're like, holy cow, no, we can't do that. So it took almost like an 18 months journey, and we are still working on it, right? To build what you call as a music neural graph, which is now learning expressions, rubato style playing, jazz improvisation, melodic lines, and we still have another 10 years of work to do over there. So it requires training data, it requires handcrafting, it requires neurobiology, that neuroscientists who actually work on psychoacoustics to tell you how the brain perceives music. It requires computational creativity, which is a lot of math and AI work. So not an easy problem at all.
Well, okay, so like Mike, as a drummer, I know Mike, you've been doing a lot of drumming lately, and of course you work at Modern Drummer. What do you like as far as backbeat, or like laying back? Like how many times you're in a recording session and somebody's like, the engineer's like, hey man, just lay back on the beat a little bit. And so you play a little bit earlier than you normally would, and it creates an effect that makes the music better. So like, what are your thoughts on that, Mike?
Well, I mean, sometimes, I'm kind of interested in what Preetham has to say, because to me, I'm not a math person. Now, obviously, for drummers, sometimes it's a personality thing. Someone who's an A-type personality is probably going to play a little ahead of the beat. Even if you ask them to play behind, the most they might be able to do is play on the beat, Whereas if you have a laid-back person who's used to hearing stuff, hey, I'll hit this whenever I feel like it. They're always going to have that kind of soul thing that's kind of behind the beat. Now, for me, looking at, early MIDI where you had, volume levels and things like that, I would think that, I have no idea, Preetham, how much work this would take, but mathematically you can go, here's 4/4, here's 8 divisions of 4/4, here's 16 divisions of 4/4, here's 32 divisions of 4/4, and the AI goes, okay, to lay back like a soul drummer, we pick these numbers. To play ahead of the beat, like maybe a metal drummer, we pick these numbers. Like I said, I'm an idiot when it comes to this stuff, so I have no idea how it happens. But it seems to be mathematically, even if I'm laying back, it's still math, right? There still is a value assigned to my dragging the beat, correct?
That's the easy part, to be honest, Mike. If you ask the AI, so here's the things that AI does very well, even dragging, adding what we think is soul, which is just the ability to give a mood, the soul as a mood. If you think about soul as a visceral mood for AI, you learn the math of it, and you allow the AI to produce that, which means it's dragging in some places, it's leading in some places, right?
Yeah. Well, and there's also, you mentioned earlier, the dynamic thing. It's dragging and hitting harder or softer. That's part of the mood too.
Yeah. So when you hit harder and softer, you can also do that by identifying what you're playing on. So one is, you just create a drum with a monophonic drum sequence, which is not laid over any other music. There is no guitar or the drum. There's no singing. It's just come up with soul style drumming, right? If you just have a solo drumming session, there is no feedback for it to say when to go hard or soft. The only feedback is itself. Like, what did I play before, and how am I actually taking the mood up and down, right? So these are called, in math, it's auto-regressive. You can actually follow your own patterns, and you can make it softer, harder, drag, lead, and so on and so forth. Can be done, and humans can't perceive whether it was played by AI or not. Drumming especially, right? But when you take it to non-percussive instruments, which has resonance, which has timbre, which has envelope, which has a lot more dimensions, right, than a percussive dimension, it becomes challenging. Syncopation becomes a challenge. You need to figure out, why are you syncopating? Because you cannot do it just because, I feel I have the mood of I have the soul of syncopation, right? Because the listener may not be trained. So one is ability to create something so visceral that it is different, but nobody appreciates it. It's still a creative piece of art because, you have something unique, but people may not like it. So the challenge is, how do you figure out the salience versus arousal versus visceral reaction in the listener rather than the creator feeling good about themselves? Because, for example, Mike, you are, Matt, you can create a piece of art, piece of music, which you like, which you think is unique, but nobody might like it. So that's a challenge with AI as well. Like, it can create any number of variations, but how do you figure out what is that variation that can appeal to some X amount of people, right? So that means you need to know what do the listeners like, and so on.
Well, I think if I'm hearing you right, Kina is trying to bring consumers and artists together. So, like, if I do a track, I put it on YouTube. Well, YouTube's the great, the great landscape of vastness. I don't know if my audience is going to find it, but with your AI engine, it might say, you need to talk to these people who are kind of into this because this is aligned with what you do. And now all of a sudden, I'm not just throwing spaghetti against the wall. I'm actually finding people who might enjoy how I play music, correct?
No, absolutely. I think throwing spaghetti among the wall like Jackson Pollock does is art, but only few people would like that art of a spaghetti sticking on the wall. But as you rightfully said, how do I create art which will make me money? So the art for art's sake and the hyperbole of art should be like 20 to 30% of you as an artist, right? You need to have freedom of expression. Like, I don't care if anybody else likes it, but I want to create that. But I also need to, bring food to the table. So I kind of care, maybe 50% of my time. So we are trying to plug that gap. Saying, if you want to make money, you need to listen to the consumers, right? And that we can actually compress your research and help you create certain melodies which are fresh, which are not like Wonderwall effects. Because the challenge right now is, some song became popular, 10 million hits. I'm going to create a song like that. That people are done with that tonality. You create yet another Me Too song. It's a Wonderwall effect. They've heard that over and over and over, and there's no novelty in that. So don't chase the popularity. Try to figure out, okay, what is unique? How do you provide something closer to that, but something people didn't anticipate? And here are some tones similar to that. That's what we are trying to create.
Yeah. Well, so like a lot of engineers, a lot of producers will, if you're working on a pop track, you got to put a hand clap, in the chorus or something, or the verse or whatever. And it's just like, you hear a lot of songs that have that. And it's like, what can we do different that has the same effect as the hand clap that is slightly different, that's unique? So you're saying that perhaps Kina can suggest what those elements are that would make up a good track or a good performance or a good song.
Is that what? Create 30 different variations of what's good, and allow either human A&R to pick it up, the artists themselves to pick it up, or say, hey, you know what? When you buy my album, here's the beauty of what we. So, how is music created today? How is it distributed today? You have one master. You create a song. You have one master copy of that song. Whoever listens to it listens to exactly the same master copy. But imagine you create a music player which has intelligence, which knows that you're working out, which knows that you're actually in a soulful mood, you're a coffee table experience. It's elevator, you're playing it in an elevator, you're playing it in noisy places, and so on and so forth. And the song is not a static song anymore. The song is an intelligent song, right? You as a creator has created the song, and you say you provide the power back to the consumer to say, speed it up, slow it down, remove the beats, or remove the guitar, or remove the hand clapping for me. I mean, I don't like it, whatever, right? Or a dial for them. We give equalizers to humans, right? To say, change the frequencies.
Sure.
What if you don't give equalizers to change frequencies? You give the ability to literally change the mood of the song, right? The setting of the song itself can change.
Well, that would be.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, that would be crazy. So if I, if I'm listening to an aggressive song that I've written, and maybe somebody goes, I think I kind of like the melody, but I just can't handle all those loud guitars. The AI would automatically, replace the loud guitars with keyboards or something to make it more palatable to that listener.
Absolutely. Or as much as I love Megadeth to the grave, there are certain songs where I don't want him to sing at all. I just just play.
Yeah.
The purity of of your song is you not singing, but the entire guitar. So what if I can just say, eliminate the voice.
Yeah.
Well, what if you could take like Dave Mustaine's voice and make it into a guitar tone, and be the melody, have like a lead guitar tone to replace it, or a trumpet, like, and okay, so picture this. So let's say I release a track and I give it to the fans and I'm like, hey, maybe this is an NFT or something that you could make. And then, so your song is now an NFT that has the ability for somebody to go to a website or an app or whatever and change anything. You can't add things to it, but you can change the timbres of the instruments. You can add effects. You can remix and do all these different things. And then they can submit the song back as a remixed song. And then you have all of your fans interacting with your music in a creative way. And then like maybe the best song, the one that you like the best, or the one that gets the most people to listen to it or whatever, could be like you could win a prize or something, or you could get rights for that song or something like that.
You can do that, or you can do something far more simpler. Sorry. You can do something far more simpler. Mike likes 3 versions of his drumming, 3 different versions. Like an aggressive version of drumming, records it, same song. Relaxed version of drumming, records it, same song. I'm talking something that can be done now, right?
Okay.
And literally provide an option in your player which just changes the setting, right? Now, take it to the next level, year ahead. Mike probably doesn't have to do that. He just records one version, and it has learned his aggressive version and his laid-back version, Mike's version, right? And it's creating that on the fly for the listener. It is still the same artist. It's adding swings. It's removing swings, right? It's removing the soul. It's adding soul. All done by the player. There are 2 intelligent components. The intelligent song. The song by itself is not a static song anymore. It is just a knowledge base of all things, of all the artists who has created this melodic line, which they call a song. And the player, which understands that the player needs to evolve and the song needs to evolve for this to happen. Go ahead, Mike. I'm sorry. I cut you.
Well, I mean, no, that's awesome, because I mean, I can see, obviously, Matt and I, if I have a chance to remix something, I like the song enough, I'm probably going to do it. But I also know, even back in the 90s, I think there were companies that allowed you to have somewhat control over a mix. And they found out really quickly that nobody wanted to really do that. They didn't want to do the work.
Right.
But what you're saying is that all you have to do, or all Kina will do for me, is I just don't want to hear Dave Mustaine's voice today, and it automatically does it, right? Or I wish Mike wouldn't hit that cymbal so much. I want to hear Mike playing with brushes, and it automatically does that. Correct?
Absolutely. So you gave the power back to the consumer as well. So while the artist had all the power to express themselves in any different variations, you allowed the consumer to allow the artist back by saying, I love this artist, but. So, okay, eliminate the but. Eliminate that one aspect why you don't listen to Trivium, one aspect why you don't listen to a Mastodon or a whatever, right? Doesn't matter. Or Django Reinhardt, which is old classics. I mean, give me Django Reinhardt with some EDM on it, right? Like, why not? You're bringing the artist back. You're sharing the royalties because you're allowing the consumer which artists get what royalty. You're allowing the consumer saying, please me in these ways, and I'll choose. Let me choose my artist, and you figure out the royalties for the artist, right? Whoever that you is. So, isn't that powerful? Where you're giving the power back to the consumer as well, because he's the person who's spending. He or she is the person who's spending.
Yeah, I mean, I love that, but it kind of gets into that point you made earlier about, if I want to make money as a musician, my creative side should be, I think you said 20 or 30% of the equation, because I want to make money. Working with artists in studios, that when I'm a producer or an engineer, sometimes you run right up against that thing where most artists want to be 97.7% of, and they claim they're going to make money anyway. They probably won't, but it's like, I want to hold on. Don't tell me that I have to play softer, or don't tell me that I can't play electric. Don't tell me I have to play that melody. I mean, it really does take a little bit of I mean, I love the whole vision that you're discussing, but it will mean that for ambitious artists, they may have to give up some of the control over the creative process to be able to monetize it in a way. Is that fair?
Maybe I'm saying, yeah, initially, yes. So it's a curve, right? 5 or 10 years, when Kena cracks it or anybody else cracks it, I mean, I'm not arrogant that we will do it, but whoever does it, the artist can be as aggressive and artistic as she can be, and the AI will figure out what the consumer wants and temper down the artist. Let the artist create whatever they want to create, and the consumer says how they want to receive the artist, and AI in between is associating all the royalties to the artist and having some creativity in between. Well, with the permission of the artist, if the artist wants to make money, artist says, okay, I will allow my pure, sublime art that I've created. I'll allow 50% of variation on that to my consumers, or 100% of variation to my consumers, or zero variation. You take it or you leave it, right? So that is possible using AI. 5 years from now, 10 years from now.
That's crazy. Well, I mean, it's interesting because Matt and I have had discussions with Deadmau5, the DJ and EDM guy, and he wants AI to actually create another hymn, so that even when he's dead, there will still be Deadmau5 compositions being released in the world, which was kind of funny, but not impossible.
I think there's a lot of people already doing that with Nirvana, with Hendrix. There's a 21 Club, which has taken all these people who were part of the 21 or 27?
27.
27 Club, yeah. 21's too young. 27 Club. So they've taken all these songs and they're recreating in their own style. It's called style transfer, or it's the ability to feed the AI a certain type of music and asking it to recreate it. Maybe I don't know. Kurt Cobain may not appreciate if he's back, but it gives variations for listeners on something new that is Kurt Cobain like. So it's already possible today.
Yeah.
Well, we're getting kind of close to the top of the hour. I wanted to kind of start wrapping things up here, but I wanted to give everybody around the horn last comments and everything. So, Mike, do you have any last comments?
Well, I just wanted to get kind of Preetham had any insights as a creator and a mathematician and a programmer and a visionary into the whole AI thing. When you're with musicians, and what's been going on with Matt and I, even with the podcast, it's you have people who might be awesome at what they do. There's a certain level of of skill, but they never really become famous. They never really become successful financially because who knows? They don't have the right charisma. They have the wrong haircut. Their voice may be a little bit problematic. I mean, who knows? But they just don't. They just don't find that public that floats them up above being not successful. But do you think that when you're talking about AI and finding audiences and being able to more or less, do you think that this charisma factor could someday be less of an issue with artists looking for success?
It's a holy grail. Honestly, I don't have an answer for that, primarily because notions like charisma, charm, the hyperbole of what art is so much in the subjective area of human consciousness and what we appreciate at that particular point in time. It's probably never going to be 100% addressed. I think that hyperbole is important for the artist to claim and hold the agency, at least on that front, which AI can never take away. The concept of charisma can be built. You can be made look sexy with a bikini fat diet using AI or whatever. I mean, if that's an allegorical notion. But there is something so innate about humans that they can actually find out what's authentic and what's not, what's made up. No matter how much of AI lipstick you slap on an artist, if the artist by themselves are not charismatic, authentic, does not have a story, does not have a hyperbole about the art and a passion to truly please the audience, then the audience will not care, right? I mean, so I don't know whether that agency can be taken away from humans. But that said, a lot of lipstick and fat diet can be applied using AI.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that.
No, that's a good way of putting it.
Mhm.
Well, okay, so we've talked about artificial intelligence. We've talked about music. Preetham, what are your closing comments? What would you like to say to all the musicians out there that are listening to the show that might be trying to come up with new ways of doing things, and also where can people find you and all those type of things?
Yeah, no, honestly, I will not pretend that I have an advice for all the artists out there. But the only thing I would state is that you can be on a spectrum of art. That is, you can say I'm an artist because I want to be a pure artist and I don't care about making money. So you can be a Van Gogh, you can die poor. All due respect, be that. Then don't complain, right? Don't badmouth the industry. Don't say nobody cares, because you didn't care. Or there's the other end of the polarity, which is I want to make money as well. If you want to make money, you have to be an entrepreneur. You have to learn the skills like any other startup. As an artist, you're a startup. You may not be a tech startup, but you're an artist startup. And learn the ropes, or get somebody and get mentors, get advisors, get artist managers, listen to them, and try to change a little and get that at least 30-40% to make that money. That's the only thing that I can tell any artists out there. Don't fear technology, because that will become a Luddite argument. Be progressive, hold your agencies, hold your charisma, be authentic. It'll always shine through. That's my probable advice. Last words. Well, as I said, Kena is doing two separate things. One thing that we are doing, which is research, that takes about a year, 2 more years to hit the market. So everything we spoke about is that research area. But something that we're doing right now, which is building a community for artists, building an ability for hobbyists and people who are learning music. They can actually download Kena Opus today. That is far more simpler than all this complex AI that we spoke about, which is really learning the scales, learning the chords, learning, jamming with people, uploading your music and getting feedback, uploading your songs to a sheet music and getting assessments done. That is available today. It's called Kena Opus, Kena space OPUS, the app. Or you can go to kena.ai, go download, take a look, and start building your own community over there. And we will soon enable monetization options for people. The app is free. We will not make money until an artist make money. Even after that, I think for a long period of time, we will just be a marketplace without making money. So go ahead and download and have fun.
Well, cool. Well, thanks for being on the show, Preetham. And what website can they find you at? Oh, look, it's right down here at the bottom. Kena AI.
Kena.ai.
Yep.
I just went there. I just beat everybody who's watching the show.
Oh man. Yeah, everybody go down and download the app and check it out and play with it. And if you got any questions, I'm sure Preetham is open for feedback and would love to meet you. So reach out to him on social media, or do you have email contact information on the website?
Yeah,
I do, but you can also shoot me at V as in Victor, V as in Victor, Preetham, Preetham on Twitter. My DMs are open.
Okay.
Feel free to shoot me a DM, or you can also mail me at Preetham@kena.ai, Preetham @kena.ai.
All right. Awesome. And I would like to, before we go, I'd like to just bring up the fact that we have on Clubhouse, we have a meetup every Monday called Tech Startups for Musicians and Creatives, which Preetham is a part of that panel on a regular basis. And we just discuss, tech startups and how a musician or a creative person might use a tech startup to get to their goals. So there's a lot of investors and tech people and famous musicians, legendary producers, all kinds of great people are showing up to those. So come and check us out on the Kingdom of Rock Club in Clubhouse.
This last Monday, we just had an unbelievably intense conversation about authentic drumming, African drumming, how drumming has come into the world, how it's been co-opted, how things started. I've been a musician for, I don't want to even say 50 years, and my mind was, and I know a lot of stuff about a lot of different ethnic musics, but man, my mind was blown. So it's even if you're not into the tech thing, just the knowledge that is shared there about music in general has been unbelievable.
Absolutely. That was a great conversation. And also be looking out. We do have a weekly meetup on Tuesdays in Los Angeles, out in the real world. So hit me up on Instagram, Matt Gibson Guitar, if you want to be added, or message Mike at Mike. Where can people get a hold of you?
GP editor at Gmail. It's easy.
Okay, cool. And also, we're going to be doing meetups in San Francisco, New York, Nashville, and possibly Hong Kong here in the near future. So be looking for those as well.
And thanks again, Preetham, for showing. It was a really great conversation, and thank you so much for sharing everything. And much luck to Kina. Looks like you guys have got an awesome idea brewing there that's going to help musicians, and we're all in favor of that, obviously.
Thank you. Hope we'll crack it with all of your help. Really appreciate the time and bringing me up on this channel. Love Kingdom of Rock. Everybody, just follow these guys.
All right.
Good luck your way right now.
Yeah, that's right.
All right. Bye, Kingdom of Rock.